What if the real terror wasn't a monster in the shadows, but the creeping suspicion inside your own mind? The 1940s weren't just the golden age of film, they birthed some of the most haunting psychological thrillers ever crafted. Stay tuned as we reveal 15 of the greatest psychological thrillers of the 1940s, according to AFI and film historians. You'll never look at the past the same way again. Rebecca, 1940. Alfred Hitchcock's haunting American debut, Rebecca doesn't just crawl under your skin. It blooms there, like the ghost of a memory you can't quite place. The story begins with a shy young woman swept off her feet by the dashing Maxim de Winter. She arrives at Manderley, his sprawling estate, only to find herself haunted, not by spirits, but by the lingering influence of Maxim's first wife, Rebecca. Every room, every whisper, every glance reminds her that she can never measure up to a woman who is no longer alive. The housekeeper, Mrs. Danvers, with her icy obsession, seems more loyal to Rebecca than reality itself. As suspense deepens, so does the heroine's paranoia. Is she imagining things, or is someone manipulating her into madness? This psychological duel between the living and the dead, real or imagined, ends in fire, both literal and emotional. The film won the Oscar for Best Picture, and Hitchcock's masterful tension cemented it in AFI's pantheon of thrillers. Rebecca is not just a mystery, it's a portrait of identity erasure, jealousy, and the dangerous weight of the past. It's not the ghosts that kill you, it's what they leave behind. Shadow of a Doubt, 1943. In Shadow of a Doubt, evil doesn't knock, it waltzes in wearing a charming smile and bearing gifts. Hitchcock tells the story of young Charlie, a bright teenage girl thrilled when her Uncle Charlie comes to visit their small-town home. But as she begins to notice cracks in his polished facade, mysterious phone calls, cryptic newspaper clippings, and nervous glances, a sickening suspicion grows. Her beloved uncle might be a killer. The beauty of the film lies in its slow, intimate unraveling. Uncle Charlie is no monster lurking in the dark. He's in the living room, sharing meals, offering affection. That proximity is the horror. As young Charlie grapples with the truth, she becomes locked in a psychological war with a man she once idolized. Hitchcock cleverly pits innocence against corruption, youth against cynicism. AFI calls it one of his best, and rightly so. This isn't just a thriller, it's a heartbreaking betrayal of childhood trust, a reminder that the people we love can wear masks we never see coming. Shadow of a Doubt sinks into you quietly, like poison in a cup of tea, sweet, slow, and fatal. Gaslight, 1944. Before gaslighting was a buzzword, it was a bone-chilling nightmare played out on the screen. In Gaslight, Ingrid Bergman plays Paula, a woman slowly convinced she's losing her mind. But it's not mental illness at work. It's her husband. He dims the gaslights, hides objects, fabricates lies, and accuses her of delusion, all in an elaborate scheme to cover up a crime and gain access to her inheritance. Directed by George Cukor, the film builds an atmosphere of stifling dread. The audience, unlike Paula, knows she's being manipulated, but that doesn't make the descent any less terrifying. Bergman's Oscar-winning performance captures the quiet horror of a woman doubting her own sanity, unable to trust her memories, her surroundings, even herself. Charles Boyer is chillingly smooth as the husband who weaponizes affection. Every moment tightens like a noose. Gaslight is more than a thriller, it's a psychological prison. AFI recognized it as one of the greatest thrillers of all time for good reason. It's a haunting portrayal of domestic abuse long before we had words for it. The real terror? When love becomes control and the light in your life slowly fades, one flickering lie at a time. The Spiral Staircase, 1946. Few thrillers play so masterfully with silence as The Spiral Staircase. In a remote, storm-battered mansion, a serial killer is targeting women with imperfections. The latest potential victim? Helen, a mute servant played with vulnerable brilliance by Dorothy McGuire. She can't scream. She can't call for help. And as shadows creep across the halls, every creaking floorboard becomes a drumbeat of terror. Directed by Robert Siodmak, this film is a gothic symphony of suspense. The spiral staircase itself, winding, disorienting, full of blind corners, becomes a metaphor for Helen's trapped world. But she's not just a victim. The beauty of the spiral staircase is in its portrayal of inner strength in the face of silence. Helen must rely on instinct, perception, and courage as the killer closes in. The tension is slow burn but agonizing. Every scene brims with menace. A lesser film would have used Helen's muteness as a gimmick. This one turns it into a superpower of empathy. AFI may not have ranked this one in the top 100, but film historians know it's one of the most psychologically tense thrillers of the 1940s, and a chilling reminder that fear often strikes hardest when you can't even cry for help. The Stranger, 1946. In The Stranger, Orson Welles gives us a thriller soaked in dread and post-war paranoia. Edward G. Robinson plays a government agent tracking a Nazi war criminal hiding in a sleepy Connecticut town under the name Charles Rankin, a role played by Welles himself. Rankin is engaged to a local schoolteacher and seems perfectly American on the surface, but the past has a way of showing its face. As the truth seeps out, the film becomes a gripping cat-and-mouse game with psychological stakes higher than any action sequence. What makes The Stranger powerful isn't just its suspense, but the moral ambiguity. Welles doesn't play a cackling villain. He's cold, composed, hiding genocide behind suburban charm. Robinson's character, by contrast, represents dogged justice, and he's willing to dig through illusions to get to the rot beneath. One of the first films to show Holocaust footage as evidence, it shocked 1940s audiences. It isn't as showy as some of Hitchcock's thrillers, but it's just as disturbing. The Stranger doesn't scream evil, it whispers it, and that whisper lingers. Leave Her to Heaven, 1945. You don't expect a psychological thriller to look this beautiful, but beneath Leave Her to Heaven's lush Technicolor exterior is a story so twisted, so quietly terrifying, it redefined the femme fatale. Jean Tierney plays Ellen, a woman whose love is so obsessive, it kills. When she falls for a novelist and marries him, she demands all his attention and punishes anyone who dares to come between them. Even family, especially family. In one of the most disturbing scenes of 1940s cinema, Ellen calmly watches as her husband's disabled brother drowns. Her expression? Emotionless, controlled, chilling. What makes this film so unforgettable is the collision between visual beauty and moral horror. The sun-drenched lake, the immaculate homes, the glamorous costumes, they all mask a mind unraveling beneath the surface. Ellen's possessiveness isn't just romantic jealousy, it's psychosis. Tierney's performance is unnervingly subtle. She doesn't scream or wield a knife. Her weapon is control. And that makes her unforgettable. Leave Her to Heaven stands apart because it dares to make a woman's love the most dangerous force of all. It's not noir, it's something much more insidious, a Technicolor nightmare where desire turns to death in the blink of an eye. Spellbound, 1945. Imagine falling in love with a man who might be a murderer, and then betting your sanity to prove he's innocent. That's the dark romance at the heart of Spellbound, a Hitchcock thriller steeped in psychoanalysis, mystery, and dream logic. Ingrid Bergman plays Dr. Constance Peterson, a brilliant psychiatrist who meets a new hospital director suffering from amnesia. But something's wrong. He has flashes of memory, visions of murder, and a fear of sharp patterns. As she peels back the layers of his psyche, we're pulled into one of Hitchcock's most cerebral thrillers. Featuring surreal dream sequences designed by Salvador Dali, the film explores how guilt, trauma, and the subconscious shape our actions, and how love can be a form of rescue. But don't let the dreamy visuals fool you. Spellbound is a suspense machine, tightening with every clue Constance uncovers. Peck's character may be innocent, or he may be the killer. The audience, like Constance, is never quite sure. What's real? What's imagined? Spellbound takes you deep inside the mind and shows that sometimes the greatest mysteries are the ones buried in our memories. AFI listed it among its greatest thrillers for good reason. It's a puzzle box of love, guilt, and revelation. Sorry, Wrong Number, 1948. A telephone becomes the thread of terror in Sorry, Wrong Number, one of the most claustrophobic thrillers ever made. Barbara Stanwyck plays Leona Stevenson, a wealthy bed-bound woman who accidentally overhears a murder plot over the phone. But no one believes her, not the police, not her husband, not even the operator. As the calls continue and time runs out, she slowly pieces together a horrific truth. The murder isn't random, it's personal, and she might be the target. The film unfolds mostly from Leona's bedroom, a single set that somehow feels more dangerous with every passing minute. The real horror comes from helplessness. Leona can't move, she can't fight, she can only listen and scream. Stanwyck's performance is a masterclass in unraveling anxiety. Watching her shift from haughty confidence to crumbling terror is mesmerizing. And when the twist lands, it's like a punch to the chest. Sorry, Wrong Number is the blueprint for dozens of thrillers that followed, but few have matched its suffocating sense of isolation. The Lodger, 1944. Fog-choked streets, gas lamps flickering, a killer who targets women at night. The Lodger plunges us into Victorian London with a story that dances dangerously close to the legend of Jack the Ripper. But instead of showing the crimes, the film traps us inside a boarding house where a mysterious man has just rented a room. He's polite, soft-spoken, and very interested in women with golden hair. The landlady suspects him. Her daughter is drawn to him. And we, the audience, are torn between fear and sympathy. Is he a monster? Or a misunderstood man haunted by something darker? Director John Bram crafts a dreamlike atmosphere where suspicion and sympathy walk hand in hand. It's a psychological slow burn, building not with blood, but with silences, side glances, and whispered rumors. The genius of The Lodger is in how it plays with perception. You're never sure if you're watching a thriller or a tragedy, until it's too late. This film doesn't give answers easily. It's more interested in the uncertainty that makes psychological horror so powerful. And in that sense, it's a forerunner to modern thrillers that trade jump scares for emotional dread. The Lodger whispers, and that whisper echoes. The Seventh Victim, 1943. A shadowy staircase, a locked room, a girl searching for her missing sister and finding something far more terrifying. The Seventh Victim, produced by Val Lewton, is a moody, surreal descent into paranoia and despair. When young Mary sets out to find her vanished sibling, she stumbles upon a secret satanic cult operating out of Greenwich Village. But this is no tale of witches in the woods. The horror here is urban, intellectual, and existential. The cult doesn't wave daggers. They quietly suggest suicide. What makes this film so unsettling is its refusal to offer comfort. There are no clear villains, no heroic rescues, no neat resolutions. Just a sense that evil is ordinary, depression is contagious, and belief can be a silent weapon. The black and white cinematography deepens the gloom with shadows thick enough to drown in. The Seventh Victim was largely overlooked in its time, but has since gained recognition as a precursor to the psychological horror of Rosemary's Baby and Hereditary. It's slow, yes, but deliberate, and when it hits, it doesn't scream, it whispers despair. The final scene? It'll haunt you long after the lights go out. Cat People, 1942. In Cat People, the terror isn't from a monster in the dark, it's the fear of what might be inside you. Irina, a Serbian-born fashion illustrator in New York, believes that if she becomes sexually aroused or angry, she'll transform into a deadly panther. Sounds ridiculous, right? But this is no creature feature. Directed by Jacques Tourneur and produced by Val Lewton, Cat People uses suggestion, shadows, and silence to create one of the most psychologically disturbing films of the decade. We're never shown a transformation. Instead, the horror is left to our imagination, fueled by dim corridors, echoing footsteps, and sudden gusts of wind. Irina is not a villain. She's a victim of fear, cultural trauma, and suppressed desire. Her new husband doesn't understand her, and her psychiatrist wants to control her. Trapped in a web of suspicion and self-loathing, she becomes both the hunted and the hunter. AFI recognized Cat People as one of the greatest thrillers for its pioneering approach to suspense, and rightly so. This film showed that psychological horror doesn't need gore, it needs doubt, and Cat People leaves you questioning not just Irina's sanity, but your own perception. What if the scariest part of us is something we can't control? Ministry of Fear, 1944. Imagine being released from a mental asylum only to be swept into a web of espionage, murder, and lies. That's Ministry of Fear, Fritz Lang's taut thriller based on the novel by Graham Greene. Stephen Neal is trying to restart his life, but one simple act, attending a village fair and winning a cake, plunges him into a conspiracy he doesn't understand. The cake contains secret documents, and suddenly everyone's chasing him. But is he truly sane, or still haunted by guilt from his past? Lang creates a world of shifting shadows and constant suspicion. Nothing feels safe, not the cozy British countryside, not the strangers who offer help, and certainly not the authorities. Every character could be a spy. Every smile hides a secret. The film explores themes of identity and paranoia, making the audience feel as disoriented as Neal himself. Milland delivers a quiet but powerful performance as a man who desperately wants truth in a world where everyone lies. Though often overshadowed by Lang's The Big Heat and M, Ministry of Fear remains a masterclass in psychological suspense. It whispers that just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you. They Live by Night, 1948. They Live by Night is more than a thriller. It's a love story dragged through barbed wire. Nicholas Ray's debut film tells the story of Bowie, a young convict who escapes prison and falls in love with Kichi, a girl just as lost and lonely as he is. Their romance is tender, awkward, and heartbreaking, but doomed from the start. Bowie is hunted not just by the law, but by fate itself. What makes the film such a standout is how it shifts the focus from action to emotion. The tension doesn't come from shootouts or car chases, but from stolen moments, quiet confessions, and the knowledge that happiness isn't built to last for people like them. The psychological weight is immense. These aren't criminals. They're children in grown-up bodies, suffocated by a world that offers no way out. Ray uses deep shadows and handheld shots to create an intimacy that borders on voyeurism. You don't watch this film, you feel it. They Live by Night may not have made AFI's mainstream lists, but its influence ripples through films like Bonnie and Clyde and Badlands. It's a noir that dares to be tender, and that's what makes it unforgettable. The Suspect, 1944. In The Suspect, Charles Laughton delivers a performance that leaves you questioning your own morality. He plays Philip Marshall, a gentle, soft-spoken man trapped in a miserable marriage. When he falls in love with a younger woman, it's not lust or manipulation, it's genuine connection. But society won't allow it. His wife refuses to give him a divorce, and soon she turns up dead. Did he kill her, or was it fate lending a cruel hand? The brilliance of this Robert Siodmak thriller lies in its ambiguity. Marshall is no monster. In fact, he's deeply sympathetic. We want him to find happiness, which makes the possible crime all the more disturbing. The film plays with the viewer's sense of justice. Is murder ever understandable? Even forgivable? Laughton's performance is masterful. Every sigh, every glance carries emotional weight. You don't just watch his character struggle, you struggle with him. The suspect may not feature grand chases or plot twists, but its suspense comes from within, quiet, suffocating, and deeply human. It asks a chilling question. What if the real danger isn't evil, but desperation? And what if the villain is the man who simply couldn't take it anymore? The Dark Mirror, 1946. What happens when identity itself becomes a weapon? In The Dark Mirror, Olivia de Havilland plays identical twins, one kind, the other potentially murderous. When a doctor is found dead, both sisters deny the crime. One has an airtight alibi, the other a sinister glint in her eye. A psychologist is brought in to untangle the truth, but how do you treat a patient when you don't know who's who? This noir thriller, directed by Robert Siodmak, is a psychological maze where perception, memory, and trauma collide. De Havilland delivers a stunning dual performance, switching from soft vulnerability to icy menace with chilling precision. The tension builds not through action, but through mind games, hypnosis sessions, and emotional manipulation. As the psychologist begins to suspect which twin is dangerous, he becomes entangled emotionally. And that's when the real danger begins. The Dark Mirror isn't just a thriller, it's a study in fractured identity. It explores the idea that beneath every calm surface, there could be a shadow self waiting to strike. By the time the truth is revealed, the audience is just as disoriented as the characters. Because in a world of mirrors, how do you ever know which side is real? From haunted minds to deadly obsessions, these 1940s psychological thrillers proved that fear lives in the silence between heartbeats. If these films left you rattled or inspired, share your favorites below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and explore more hidden gems of cinema history right here on our channel.